Okay, Officer Christopher Bess is joining us, Miami Beach PD. Bess, this is called heavily trafficked. Tell me about the intersection because I'm having nightmares. There's one thing about running across the street where you live, it's a single lane, as opposed to 3rd Avenue and Lex and Manhattan, okay? Describe this heavily trafficked area.
Correct. So it is an enormous intersection, and it is utilized pretty heavily by vehicular traffic and also other pedestrian traffic as well. So this is something that the boy and also the other victims we learned would do quite often because they didn't have electricity. So they would navigate this intersection quite often, going to the park and other areas of the city again, just to do what normal kids would do.
Two forensic psychologists joining us, Dr. Jeff Kalashevsky, author of A Dark Sides. On YouTube, you can find him, Dr. Jeff Kalashevsky, forensic psychologist. Dr. Jeff, thank you for being with us. I find it very difficult to take in, okay, because since my children came home from the NICU at 5 pounds and 2 pounds, my life's mission is to keep them happy and well fed and safe. So, how do the parents go chow down at Chipotle or Golden Corral when their children are running in the street with their bones poking out?
Right. I've been involved in literally thousands of neglect and abuse cases as a forensic psychologist. And many times, when you see neglect like this, there may be substance abuse or there may be mental illness or even a lack of knowledge to parent. But occasionally, you will run into these parents that are so self centered, so caught up in their own lives that the children are secondary to the point where the kids are harmed. And, I wonder about this case. Is this a case of sort of
I want to see
narcissistic
him.
and self centered people? Or
Kalashevsky,
can these people, yeah,
Kalashevsky, hold on.
okay.
Okay, you're giving me blah, 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 blah. What do you mean? The child is secondary. That could mean
Yeah,
anything. The children are starving. I don't know why you call
right,
that secondary. That's certainly euphemistic. You're putting perfume on the pig. The children were starving. The commodes are overflowing with feces. You know what that
right.
is, right? Crap,
Oh, yeah,
poop.
yeah,
And they're living there in the cold while mommy and daddy are dining out at a restaurant. What does secondary
right.
mean? That's not
What I mean by
the word I
secondary
would
is
use.
they're so caught up in their own life and what they want that the kids are a second thought. They don't even want to feed the kids as long as they're fed. Um, maybe they'll leave some money for the kids, or maybe they'll just forget about the kids because they're well fed and happy and doing their own thing, and the kids are on the
I'm
back
looking at
burner.
him right now, Kalashevsky. You know what? I need an MD. Dr. Michelle Dupree is joining us. You know her well. She shot to fame during the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial. But in my world, the world of crime, she was already famous. Forensic pathologist, medical examiner, and guess what? Also former detective, author of Money, Mischief, and Murder, The Murdaugh Dynasty, the rest of the story, and more important for me, field guide for child abuse investigation. Child abuse investigation field guide and homicide investigation field guide. Dr. Dupree, thank you for taking time to be with us. How long do you have to starve a child before their ribs and their bones start showing through their skin?
Nancy, a child normally would starve to death in 3 to 4 weeks, and so they're going to be exhibiting signs of that. They're gonna get very skinny, all sorts of other, symptoms and signs are gonna be there. So, 2 to 3 weeks, and that's it. A person cannot go very long without water, 3 days or so, but food, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. This is so egregious. And unfortunately, this is not that uncommon. I have dealt with many child abuse and neglect cases all over the country, really, and we see this more often than we want.
I'm catching on one thing. Dr. Dupree, it's my job to marshal evidence to determine what I can prove, whether that evidence is admissible in front of a jury, because if it's not, it means nothing to me. But I just heard you say it could take 2 to 3 weeks before a child's bones are actually sticking out. Okay, Derek Smith, back to you. You're a veteran trial lawyer. Right there, I would have a field day with these parents because it's not an isolated incident where one night they didn't get supper. They're not steaming broccoli, okay, in the steamer like you do for your children. This took at least 2 to 3 weeks to methodically starve them.
Well,
That's
Nancy, I mean, you mentioned
premeditation,
evidence.
man.
Well, you mentioned
What?
evidence, and this is what we need to. You mentioned evidence. This is how we try cases. This is how we figure out guilt, innocence. We use evidence, testimony, and right here, the children are the ones telling the police they went to bed hungry that night, because as the mother said when they questioned her, they don't go to bed hungry at night. They just didn't want Raising Cane's, or she didn't want to feed at McDonald's, and the children didn't want to eat anything but that. So
Okay,
that's a
wait, wait,
different
wait. Okay,
argument.
I'm starting to see your defense here. So you're saying the children want a McDonald's, and her being such a good mommy, she goes, "Oh, no fast food for you." How about no food for you? One night of refusing McDonald's does not a starving child make. And you better know right now, my children have never gone to bed without plenty of food. Okay? Ever. So you're saying that in this case, now I get why you were talking about your son wanting McDonald's as opposed to broccoli. You're saying that mommy is such a good mommy, she wouldn't feed her children fast food. You do know that's BS, right? In the real world, maybe in criminal defense world, it's great. I wouldn't buy that if an angel flew down from heaven and tried to sell it to me. You're saying they went to bed hungry because mommy didn't want them to have McDonald's? Is that your defense right now?
Hey, Nancy, I'm pointing to the evidence. And right now, the evidence we have is testimony from the child and testimony from the parents. And furthermore, if you look into what they were talking about to the police, they're in school. The school provides them with food. So how do they get to this point? I
Oh
mean, what, they were on
my
break for a little while?
stars. So wait, you're saying mommy and daddy are not responsible for breakfast and lunch because the children can get that at school?
Well, I mean, if they're provided food from the school, how are they getting to this point?
Let me just
Do we
say
have
this.
specific evidence of this?
Officer
Or we
Bess,
just kind of
I got to give this to Derek Smith. He wins a lot of cases, and now I see why. He's got this good guy, look at me, would I lie to you appearance, and he makes it seem like, hey, she's just a good mom. She didn't want them to have fast food, Officer Bess. You know, you might almost fall for it unless you had been one of the cops answering that call and you see the child thin, running in the street and you go to the home. Tell me, Bess, what was found in the home?
Well, Dancy, what we were able to discover in the home is there was no functioning stove. So even if the parents felt as though they wanted to cook broccoli, they didn't even have the audacity to fix the basic necessities such as a stove in the home. Furthermore, there was no food inside of their refrigerator. So these kids not only had to fend for themselves, but the foods and the meals that were provided in the schools were the only source of nourishment they really had.